Okay, we are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Simply Tech Live. This is your first time tuning in. Simply Tech Live is a broadcast on LinkedIn Live with technologists and practitioners on the evolving landscape of technology. And we have a wonderful guest set up today. I'm your co-host, Derek Russell, and I'll go ahead and introduce my co-host, Ali. What's going on? How you feeling?
Energized, super excited for this. We planned this. It took us like 2 months to finally have Elnaz as a guest. So super excited about the topic and what she and her team has been doing. We're gonna hear a lot about like how challenges like COVID can bring opportunities for startups and thought leaders like Elnaz. I'm super excited to hear about her thoughts on the topic of women in technology and her struggles as she moved from the same country that I'm from, Iran, coming to the US and becoming so successful. So with that, maybe we can have Elnaz to introduce herself and we're gonna get into the show.
Thanks, Derek and Ali. I'm very, very excited and honored to be here. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. Elnaz Sarraf. I'm the founder and CEO of Roybi, which is the AI-powered educational robot for kids aged 3 to 7 in language learning and basic STEM. We started Roybi basically with a mission and focus to change education for little children in early childhood education. And I'm very excited to talk with you today and tell you more about what we are doing, the challenges, and what's going to happen in the future.
Perfect. So like all the other shows, Derek has some specific question that he's going to ask you, and then I'm going to throw some random curveballs, and hopefully we're going to make it interactive. And for the folks that are on the live chat right now, feel free to send your questions. And Derek, why don't you start?
All right. Well, the first question I'd like to ask, Elnaz, is what is giving you energy today?
Talking with you guys. Every day at startup, every day is a totally new day. And I'm not joking if I say every hour is a total new day. That gives us true energy, being able to know that we are actually working hard towards something that is so important to change the way that children learn and being able to help them to personalize the learning experience. And knowing that we are going to have a big impact on this is super exciting. We get motivated with the stories we hear about our customers using Roybi, which I can tell you some of them later on. But as I mentioned, the whole startup environment is so different. It is challenging, but also so exciting because every day you have to deal with many different aspects. For example, one day you're just working on challenges on product development. Another hour you're working on operations and resolving, for example, even logistics, transportation matters. Very little things that so many people don't even think about. We have to deal with every day. And when those challenges are resolved and we can see the bigger picture coming, makes us really excited and motivated.
Perfect.
That's awesome. So challenges. And one of the challenges that your business is attempting to solve at the front lines of solving is this idea of modernization in education. And it seems to be like we have a little bit of a problem that is evolving in education.
I think we went on. Derek is on mute.
Oh, you need to unmute them. That's fine. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Little glitch for our live discussion.
Live show.
Yeah, a little anxiety.
It's more fun, right?
So when we're talking about these challenges, we're talking about what's going on in education. What specific problem is Roybi Robot solving for, and what do you think about that problem? What are some ideas you have around solving that problem?
When we started the idea of Roybi, the whole thinking behind it has been to personalize the learning experience for children, because no longer it makes sense for kids to be in a system that is one size fits all. And the children really deserve to get educated based on their own learning abilities and interests. And that's why the idea of Roybi started. But, personalizing education experience is not something new. It has been around, but it is very difficult to create like technologies to be able to make a change in this area. But now that we have more advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, it can help us to create better experiences. For example, as we learn more about the child, we can gradually, as they talk to Roybi, we can gradually understand what they like, where they need more help. Of course, it's a big vision and it's going to take time because, with machine learning, for example, it really takes a lot of data, a lot of research and understanding how we can connect the dots and being able to create this personalized experience for children to really focus on their abilities, because every child is unique. They have unique sets of skills. And it is very important to focus on that. And that's why we saw a need, especially in early childhood education, because it's a very important time in the child's growth and future success, as they can learn skills like being able to communicate effectively, being able to learn different sets of skills growing up. It is going to really help them to be successful in the future. And that's why we started Roybi.
Perfect. We have a lot of good conversation going on. There were a couple of questions that I would like to ask you from the audience. One of them was that is this solution can be fully personalized, which I think you already answered that question per each child's need, but specifically for children with special needs.
Yes, that is a great question, and that is our truly our mission to make it happen. In order to focus on children with special needs, we need more data to be able to understand it better. To give you a few examples, right now we do have customers that we know the children have some sort of speech disorder. We also have some customers that the children have autism, but we are step by step working on this to better understand how we can personalize Roybi's technology for these children, because at some cases we notice that they sometimes it is a little bit frustrating for them, to go over some answers, to repeat them, or if there is small delay between the communication, between Roybi and the kids. We need to get a better understanding on our capabilities and how we can help them. And that is on our future plan, because again, these children are unique in their own ways, and we need to understand what makes it a better experience for them specifically. We currently have a couple of cases that we are working with a couple of therapists that they work with kids with autism. They are gradually guiding us to make some changes even on our content to make this transition or communication actually even better. So the follow-up, yes, but gradually.
Perfect. The follow-up question from Ariane is something that I was going to ask you, a more generic or broader topic. And she's asking that, do you feel that you had to convince investors in the beginning about the product? But before you answer that question, the question that I have for you. So I came to US about 21 years ago from Iran. I understand the challenges. I pretty much started from scratch like many others. I would like to, if you don't mind sharing your story what brought you to this country, and eventually how you end up building this like solution and being an entrepreneur and owning this startup.
Sure, definitely. So I go back to about 15 years ago when I actually moved to the US. I think I was really lucky because I was able to come to the US through our immediate family member, which took them about 20 years for this to happen, actually. And when I moved to the US, it was very challenging because it's a new country, new culture, new people. It's like all of a sudden you completely lose access to everything you knew, and you have to start from scratch. And when I moved here, I also saw a lot of opportunities. Back in Iran, I was really fortunate because my parents paid a lot of attention to my education. So I studied many different things, from art to even software engineering, and also I studied English. So when I came to the US, I was able to already talk and understand. So that really helped me a lot. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I feel I have to give this back to the world, my experience. But, when I moved to the US, I, like many other people, I continued my study in college. And in the meantime, I did a lot of like freelance work. I opened a couple of like companies to do many things like design, development. And those actually gave me a lot of experience, learning opportunities. And then after that, I got introduced to my first co-founder, my first company, iBaby, which I'm one of the co-founders. And through that, I was able to launch about 10 different SKUs and products to the market. So I worked with the retailers and, a lot of people, partners globally, and specifically with parents. As I worked with parents, I learned a lot about their pain points, and with a lot of research at the same time, I was able to start working on Roybi, and it has been a blessing, an amazing journey. But also, I remember you asked questions about investors. Well, in general, I hear people saying, fundraising takes time. It is difficult. Yes, in general, fundraising is difficult. It's going to take at least 6 months to close the round or even get close to it. And it doesn't really matter about the industry, but some industries are a little bit more difficult because, for example, like hardware. When we started fundraising, we didn't even have the fully functional prototype. So yes, it took a lot of convincing, a lot of communications, but at the end, the investors invested in the team. And that's what I always tell everyone: make sure you have a strong team. Because in the beginning, that's what really matters. That brings a lot of value to your company. Because investors know product changes, circumstances changes, but the team, if it's the right team, they can make anything happen. And that's how it actually worked for us.
Perfect. Derek, what's your next question?
So I'm just thinking about what you're talking about with unique experiences, your comments around autism, and then like your experience from all these other different startups that you're talking about, as well as the empathy that you have for how your parents were super bullish on education and brought you closer to education. When you think about Roybi Robot and what you're already helping some of these children with, like, and you mentioned like the unique experiences. Each child has a certain personal experience with learning. Like, what's some of the feedback that's coming back in from what's happening with these kids using your product?
We get a lot of amazing feedback. Right now we just launched the product very recently, so it's hard to get much broader feedback. But at times, we hear a lot of stories from parents that they talk about Roybi. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we heard that, a child who is really shy to talk about her day to her parents, she talks immediately with Roybi, just like a friend. She tells Roybi all about her day, and we think this is a great impact. Another one we hear, we have a customer with autism, and what they did was to implement Roybi within the therapy sessions, and we heard that actually created a lot of excitement. Of course, it needs a little bit different way of using Roybi within those sessions, but again, we hear great feedback. But I also hear, some challenges, the customers requesting certain features, and that makes it very exciting for us because we know that we are making a change. It's in the beginnings of the work, but with great communication with customers, we can always stay on top of that.
And I'd love to ask this of Ali, just because this is going to be a fun conversation here. But I was reading, doing some research on Roybi, and the idea that children look at an item that is personified into more of a human, so this robot character, children feel more comfortable talking to that robot character. Mm-hmm. I'd love to just get closer to how you guys envision that. And Ali, you're a real-time parent. What do you think about your son talking to a robot growing up?
Well, I don't know. He's 14 years old right now, so I think he passed that phase. But related to this topic, it's interesting because Elmira just sent a question on the live chat, and she's asking if you and the team are collaborating with any universities or research lab to study the long-term effect of children's interaction with the robot. That's something that's very related to what Derek asked you.
Yes, so we just recently published an article about how we came about designing Roybi. And, it took us about 4 months, many variations of designs, because what is really important is, first and foremost, it's about kids. So the product needs to be very kid-friendly and also gender neutral. We wanted to make sure that both girls and boys, when they look at Roybi, they actually like to play with it. And of course, it has to be pretty small and portable, because one of the issues that we saw with a lot of robots out there is that they are very big, heavy, even large display. And based on what we know, parents really want to take the kids off of these displays. So it wouldn't really make any sense for us to do something like that. And based on our research, we also found out that having that large display that shows certain emotions at certain times, it's not necessarily good, because at early ages, a lot of times kids really don't know much about emotions. Maybe something that we think it looks like excitement, maybe the child feels like it's the robot is angry, right? So we wanted to eliminate these matters, and after many rounds of revisions, we came up with a design that is simple, friendly. They can hold it and they can take it with them everywhere. In terms of research, no, we don't have university partners, but we are definitely looking for partnerships, because at the end of the day, what matters is really numbers and how you're actually making an impact and helping kids interacting with Roybi.
So in terms of personalization, is this something that, let's say, each parent, they have access to kind of alter the way Roybi interact with their kid, or are there any limitation, or how do you guys see this in terms of, how me as a parent can control, what Roybi can do for my kid?
So right now, how Roybi works is it has a small button on here, and when the child presses the button, the lesson starts, so they can talk with Roybi on many subjects on a daily basis. But for parents or educators, we have our applications. On the app, you can see all the lessons, all the categories. Already comes with 500 lesson songs and stories. You can play, reschedule, or select your favorite ones based on what your child likes, and that's the interaction. But this is the beginning of it. The whole purpose is that we want to utilize machine learning on our patent pending technology that gradually, based on the lessons, we will know if the child is excited. Let's say the child likes animals. We understand that interest because the child constantly plays that lesson. And if the child is not so strong, let's say in math, machine learning can gradually find lessons that the child can, let's say, learn counting by counting the animals. That makes it more exciting and engaging for children. Of course, this is a very small example, but on a bigger aspect, that is what gradually is going to happen for personalizing content. And then we can adjust the content that is being played on Roybi for that specific child.
And this is where, I get excited, right? When you talk about machine learning, that's what,
Yes.
Derek does day in, day out. And what I would love to ask or, see happening is that perhaps your technical team can work with our technology centers, because we help a lot of big and small customers on how to utilize this machine learning and AI using our Azure services. Mm-hmm. And I think that brings a great opportunity to do a couple of things. One, definitely, work with you and the team, be able to bring other organizations like universities. Absolutely. And basically have this better together story that at the end of the day is going to impact so many different kids and different families. Derek, from an AI perspective, and how you talk to others or other customers, what opportunities do you see based on what Elnaz was talking about?
I'm just really excited about this thing. And, when you kind of pinged me and Elnaz on LinkedIn on, I think it was a Women in Tech article or something. And I started looking at Roybi and I didn't really understand it. And then I started went to the website, looked at the story, and then having my AI ML background, it just kind of, my eyes lit up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. But to Elnaz's point, not because of what's offered today, but because of the data that is flowing through this product. And we all know that data is the oxygen for AI. So the capabilities that your child is going to be able to have, the personal experiences as they get smarter, as they develop, I think are super powerful. A couple things, Elnaz, I wanted to kind of start talking about in the discussion was, education all up and some of the ways that AI are helping education. I think before we jumped on the call, you mentioned, look, parents are now able to defer some of these teaching items that they're having to deal with now and have Roybi actually take those items and be with the child and entertain the child in a learning environment. When you're looking at class sizes, especially in California, 25 person per teacher in K through 12, 35 in high school, a parent or a teacher just doesn't have the one-on-one time. Mm-hmm. So when you in the context of education, like, what are your thoughts for the future?
I'm really glad you asked this because, especially with the current circumstances, more and more we see that products like Roybi are truly needed to help children give this individual attention. The education system is not expandable. Teachers are already overwhelmed. They already work hard, And but the problem is it is really hard to work with every kid individually. You mentioned the number of students in classroom in the US, but in many cases, many other countries, for example, like in China, in one classroom, or even back in Iran, I still remember maybe there were like 60, 70 students in one classroom. And that's crazy. How can you divide your attention to all these children and being able to even understand each child's individual potentials? So we see that Roybi can really become an extension to teachers to go anywhere around the world within the classroom, from classroom goes to home, comes back, and the teachers can also gradually in the future, this is in progress, that they can add their own content to Roybi and create this classroom experience within Roybi itself. We also hear that most likely, if the kids actually do their homework through Roybi, it's going to be much easier than teachers or parents constantly being on top of it. And then Roybi creates reports so they can see the progress, and based on that, they can analyze how the child is doing.
Perfect. So as you were kind of talking and having this dialogue with Derek, a couple of thoughts came to my mind. One was we had this amazing talk with Ed, which Derek knows, which session we're talking about. And it was all really about putting empathy in design and anything related to AI. There is a lot of conversation on, unconscious bias when you think about, the models and algorithms and everything that is being used. With everything that is going on these days, things about, social injustice and all the challenges and, COVID. As you guys thinking about evolving Roybi and adding more ML and AI capabilities, what are you guys doing in that aspect? And, whether this is the opportunity to, let's say, work with Microsoft, not just from the technical aspect of it, but for us, let's say, from Ed's team or Microsoft Research to bring our learnings and be able to make this, the Roybi even a better solution for the kids.
Absolutely. That definitely would be amazing, because we actually face some really important challenges when it comes to AI. And I believe it takes a lot of time and data in order to go beyond that. For example, we don't really understand the diversity, when it comes to AI. It's just literally, it's like for now, it's just one path and this is it. Even another challenge is, when it comes to even English accents in different countries, we constantly have this trouble. For example, when we send Roybi to Australia, they speak English, but the accent is very different. So Roybi has some challenges to understand this. But as we gather more data and partner with organizations like Microsoft and get help from universities to help us gather more information, process this data and implement it into our engine, all these gradually can get resolved, but of course it takes time. And there's always a joke that goes around saying AI is racist, which makes me laugh, because it's not that. The problem is we don't have enough information, enough data. And then on top of that, we have to deal with policies like children's privacy policy. We can barely even gather enough information to address, make Roybi more equal in terms of age, race, accent. So of course, as we want to grow, make the product better, we can only make this happen through partnerships.
I like the so the AI is racist. It's funny, and but I think the data is racist. Because the diversification of data isn't there, and harvesting data is expensive. And I had a podcast episode with Noelle Silver, and she talks about diversity of data, diversity of folks on the team building those models, and then diversity, going back to what you said, of the children and the market and the folks that are actually using the product. Another thing I'm thinking about with just AI, like, we're focusing a lot on the differentiation of the learning experience for the child, but there's so much other opportunity, like, grading papers, or, how to, like, giving children these learning experiences to empower the teacher, not specifically focused on the child, but like, how do we focus back to the teacher? How do we focus back to the parent? As we see, do you see room for teachers being enabled more in the actual classroom by something like Roybi?
Absolutely. We get these questions a lot, that products like Roybi, like robots, are going to replace teachers, but that is never a case, because these products, we call them cobots, which means they collaborate with people. They still need the human assistance. And we actually see this creates a lot more opportunities and open more doors, because we see the classrooms here. A lot of classrooms and schools already have, for example, internet access. They have enough, curriculum or time to teach kids. But at the same time, in other countries, a lot of these opportunities are not available. A lot of teachers cannot go to certain places to teach to children. We already have 69 million teacher shortage in the world. So just imagine, like, one of these can become an extension to teacher, to help teacher to be able to educate more children around the world. And that is an amazing opportunity, in my opinion. And it's not going to happen immediately. But as we work with teachers, even right now we work with teachers, we get their advice about our content. They help us to navigate through it, even based on different standards and Common Core and systems that we have. I can really see that Roybi becoming part of the system to help teachers to access more opportunities in many different regions in the world. But to make that happen, we have to guide teachers. We have to show them, teach them how these technologies work. And that's going to take some time, but definitely coming.
So 2 questions that are related to this topic from the audience. One of them is that there's always this risk of kids getting used to interacting with Roybi, comparing to, like, working with the parents or teacher. Are there any, like, checks in the design that, detects those behavioral, like, anomalies, and be able to alert the parents that, hey, for example, your kid is spending too much time with Roybi, right? Or, like, be able to set, like what we have with iPhone, to screen time or something like that. And the other part, there was a question from Henny asking that, can you come up with examples of how you can personalize the education for children? Is this something that your team collaborate with school districts, or this is going to be per teacher, or it's going to be based on your parents' discretion?
Sure. So in terms of the timing with Roybi, we actually limited our lessons to less than 5 minutes each. And that is in purpose, because we want to make sure the interaction is not too long. Plus, the attention span of children is very limited. And we want to make sure during that short time, they have the best experience practicing with Roybi. Another area we decided to work on is that we limit the number of lessons during certain time. For example, we only show, let's say, 20 lessons, and those 20 lessons, maybe they're only 7 days. We have 20 lessons, and we don't even allow the kids to pass those lessons and go to the next ones. And again, this is in purpose. We want to make sure they don't work too much with Roybi, but at the same time, every child is different. So it will be a little bit challenging to say 20 minutes is, for example, enough for all of them. We think this is something that parents, educators, and children at the same time need to basically figure out based on the child's abilities. And that's why we haven't put certain limitations, but we also don't allow them to go over all of our information and lessons at the same time. So that's one area. And in terms of the content, how we envision this happening in terms of adding curriculum content, we would work with teachers, universities, or schools, or even third-party developers to add their own content within Roybi. And that tool is going to be available very soon. We will be working with individual teachers or schools to make this happen.
So one idea that you brought up before we started the show was, how we can integrate with Roybi's backend system, let's say with something like Microsoft 365.
Yes.
That, let's say, the teacher and the schools are already using to be able to kind of feed that content. That's, to me, that's going to be another way that definitely we can collaborate and ideate to see what we can do. But what other thoughts or what other areas your team is currently thinking or working on, and what's next for Roybi?
The biggest area for sure is to be able to develop this tool to make sure that we fit into the teachers' curriculum and the content that they are working on a daily basis. But the second area that we are really focusing on in terms of technology is to develop our Edge AI, which removes the dependency on internet connection when children interact with Roybi. Of course, that's a very, very complicated area. In February, we acquired technology that it's called KidSense AI, and that allowed us to integrate and add a lot of data, about 3,500 hours of machine training on this ASR engine, which is the automatic speech recognition engine, be able to do the on-device recognition for Roybi rather than constantly connecting to the cloud and coming back. That reduces the delays, and then Roybi can go to areas that they do not have internet access, and that creates huge opportunity. Added to our development tool for curriculum, it's going to be completely game changer, and we are really excited to see where it goes.
Oh my God. See, now I'm becoming a geek that I love, right? To be all the time, but I can't.
Yeah.
This, the AI on the edge is going to be super key. And, we have a ton of capability like our cognitive services that you can run this locally as a container. Again, that's something that you're going to talk about open source and how everything can integrate together. I mean, to me right now, the idea of like exploring those solution to make it more localized and also, on the edge is going to be like awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know about you, Derek.
Sure. It removes a lot of limitations that currently a lot of technologies have, because they are dependent on internet connection and or even computers. But this is going to remove a lot of those challenges and create more opportunities.
One of our colleagues in the IoT team, his name is Dean Bethke, just really fantastic guy, and he came on the podcast to be interviewed, and he talked about this pendulum swing of data centers versus cloud, edge versus cloud, and some of these devices like autonomous vehicles, if they're traveling down a street at 100 miles an hour, they don't have time to make a round trip to the cloud. They need to compute on the edge. So this whole hybrid world, which of course us at Microsoft, we're just extremely biased about. We love hybrid. But it's just such an interesting use case, and it's fascinating that you guys are already thinking about that when it comes to educating children. So I just had one last question, because I know we're running tight on time. I have a daughter, she's 3.5. I have a son who's 2, and I know Ali, you have a grown man living in the house, but parents, and when I started looking at Roybi, I was so fascinated, because I felt like not only is the technology, I love the technology, but it's needed, especially for my kids. And I'm really looking at how do we, like your parents did, how do we become better parents and bring our kids closer to education? What advice do you have for parents who, even parents that aren't going to buy technology, but like, what advice do you have on all fronts about helping their children with their personalized learning curriculums?
I think in general, it is hard for parents to really be involved in day-to-day education experience for their kids, because they have to work. There's so many other things to take care of, and even especially now these days, I can hear a lot of challenges from parents, and how Roybi was able to help them. As an advice, I think every parent should be able to understand their children's potential, and based on that, being able to create some interaction and fun engagements. It is difficult, because especially with so much going on with the parents. I think there are also a lot of communities that teachers can give advice to parents in order what's the best practices to create this personalized experience with children. I would say spend about 20 minutes talking with your children to understand what they are interested about. If there are subjects that they need more help, maybe you can find more engaging programs. There are a lot of products, like not just Roybi, but of course some apps and courses that they can implement. But again, I think if parents can also talk to each other, they may be able to find even better ways to collaborate and create this community that they can come together and share advice on how they can interact and work with their kids, especially now these days that the kids have to be homeschooled. So I think it's more about the community and getting some advice and getting to know your kid much better.
Well, one thing for sure, we need to have Roybi at our technology center.
Thank you. That would be amazing.
That's right. Yes. The second part of it is there was another question from Penny. She has a startup, but she was asking whether if you have any advice for, especially when we think about, women in tech and as an entrepreneur, how they can become successful. And, what is your advice if somebody wants to start, let's say today?
In regards to starting startup, I have to say it is very, very exciting, but also expect a lot of challenges, because every day things change. Before we go live, I was just talking about it. It's like every day, it's very different, and you need to be able to navigate between many different areas. From, let's say, one day you are selling your company to investors, basically, or even selling your team. The other day you have to work on product development. And to be successful, I always believed, first of all, success is different for everybody. So everyone has different way of thinking about how they're successful. But also, I think everything is in your head. So the more you believe you can do it, and all the challenges that come to you, you may get like 200 no's, and that's what happened to us as well. Like literally 200 no's and rejections from investors, and then all of a sudden everything completely changed. And that would be my advice. Be persistent. You know your business and market better than anybody else, and also really focus on your team and making sure you have the right team to be able to continue with you in all the good and bad days.
This is awesome. Listen, we're out of time. We can have this conversation for hours with you. Yes. You are great. You are amazing. Thank you for giving us your time. I know you have another session right after this for your pitch. So I'm looking forward to have you back very soon. So hopefully we can talk more about how Microsoft can collaborate with your team and talking about more great stuff related to Roybi. So with that, if you have any final words, let's go through it. And Derek, I think we can wrap up this broadcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity and your support and amazing things you said about Roybi. We really can't wait to open the door to more opportunities for children and really help them to be successful in the future. And of course, we would love to discuss partnerships. And if also anybody has questions about technology, education, AI, I am always available. They can find me on LinkedIn, and more than happy to respond back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was so wonderful. Thank you, Elnaz. And for folks that are watching, please, if you're not already, follow us on LinkedIn at Simply Tech Live on LinkedIn. Very easy. And we'll have more amazing conversations like the one we're having today. So thank you so much for watching. And Elnaz, thank you for joining. We really appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.